A very good morning to all of you students. Trying to convince people with good ideas and words is more effective than trying to force people to do what you want with violence. Using violence is not the solution. You must have studied about the French Revolution, haven't you, in your social studies? So people were roused to action by the writings of Voltaire, Rousseau and Dante. Even in India, Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo didn't actually take part in the freedom movement, but they inspired people by their writings. So you see the importance of good writing, students. So learning to communicate effectively in any language will help you achieve great things in your life. So today's class will help you learn to communicate effectively. Shall we start the classes with phrases and linkers?
Yes, ma'am.
So students, this is an extract from your lesson, The Bird of Happiness. I am going to read it out slowly to you. Please listen carefully and then you will have to answer some questions. Wang Jia lay on the ground and began to crawl forward. His clothes were torn, his knees and shoulders were bruised. Finally, he reached the end of his journey and there he found another old monster with a brown beard and a voice like the whistling wind waiting for him. You are familiar with this text, students. You have done this lesson already. We'll read it out once again to you. Mahesha, can you read it out once
Yes,
again?
ma'am. Wang Jia lay on the ground and began to crawl forward. His clothes were torn, his knees and shoulders were bruised. Finally, he reached the end of his journey and there he found another old monster with a brown beard and a voice like the whistling wind waiting for him.
Now you know the meaning of bruised, students. The scratches on your skin, those are called bruises. And what's the meaning of torn? You can see his clothes there. His clothes are all torn. Looking at him defiantly in the face, Wang Jia said, "You can shout for all you are worth, but I am fond of my own grandpa and I'll never kill another man's."
Looking at him defiantly in the face, Wang Jia said, "You can shout for all you are worth, but I am fond of my own grandpa, and I will never kill another man's."
Listen carefully, students. In a fury, the old monster blew through his long beard and Wang Jia's bread bag flew into the sky. Before his eyes, the blue mountains and green rivers were turned into a boundless desert with not a scrap of food to be found.
In a fury, the old monster blew through his long beard, and Wang Jia's bread bag flew into the sky. Before his eyes, the blue mountains and green rivers were turned into a boundless desert with not a scrap of food to be found.
So this is the passage that is taken from your lesson. Shall we answer some questions now, students? Let's look at the first question. Think carefully and answer the questions. What did Wang Jia do after lying down on the ground? Can you think back, remember? What did Wang Jia do after lying down on the ground?
Ma'am, he began to crawl forward.
That's right. Did you get the answers? Yes. Wang Jia began to crawl forward. You all know the meaning of crawling. Crawling is to move on your hands and knees with your body close to the ground. Okay? So what did Wang Jia do after lying down on the ground?
Wang Jia began to crawl forward.
Alright. Next question. Who did he meet at the end of his journey? Can you tell me who he met, students? Who did he meet at the end of his journey?
The old monster.
That's right. He met another old monster. So who did he meet at the end of his journey?
He met another old monster.
Another old monster. Describe the old monster. What did the old monster look like? What can you tell me about the old monster?
Ma'am, he had a long brown beard
That's
and
right.
voice like the whistling wind.
Yeah, he had a voice like the whistling wind and he had a long brown beard. Let's see what the answer says. The old monster had a brown beard and a voice like the whistling wind. What happened to the mountains and the rivers? When the monster blew through his beard, what happened to the mountains and the rivers?
Ma'am, they turned into boundless desert.
Yes, they turned into a boundless desert. Now what does boundless mean here? Can you tell me, students? Yeah, Mahesha?
Unlimited.
Unlimited? That's right, without a boundary. Boundless, without a boundary, infinite. So the blue mountains and the green rivers turned into a boundless desert. Did you understand this, students? Shall we move on? Now, let's look at this passage once again. It's the same passage which we read just now to you, but can you see now some words are highlighted? Can you read out the highlighted words, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am. Crawl forward, waiting for.
So these are two groups of words that are highlighted here. Crawl forward, waiting for. Let's see why they are highlighted. Some more words here.
Yes, ma'am. Looking at,
Yes.
shout for, fond of.
Can you see those words, students? They are highlighted. They are in red color. Looking at, shout for, fond of. Let's see why these words are highlighted. This is the last part of the passage. Let's read the words.
Blew through, flew into, turned into, not a scrap of.
Can you read that again, students? Read it along with us. Blew through, flew into, turned into, not a scrap of. So here there are a lot of words that have been highlighted in red. Now let's look at all those words. Please read, Mahesha.
Crawl forward, waiting for, looking at, shout for, blew through, flew into, turned into, not a scrap of.
So what are all these words, students? These are all groups of words which have a special meaning. So these words are all, these groups of words are all called phrases. What are they called? Phrases. Let's read these phrases once again. Crawl forward. Will you repeat, Mahesha?
Crawl forward,
Waiting for,
waiting for,
looking at,
looking at,
shout for,
shout for,
blew through,
blew through,
flew into,
flew into,
turned into,
turned into,
not a scrap of.
not a scrap of.
Now students, I'll pick out one or two phrases from here and I will give you the meanings and show you how to use them in a sentence. What I want you to do is, please write down at least 3 or 4 of these phrases in your notebook, and then later you can go home, look at the meaning and use them in sentences of your own. Then you can show it to your teacher tomorrow. Will you do that? That will be your assignment. Okay, shall we move on now? Will you copy down the phrases now? Crawl forward, waiting for, looking at, shout for, blew through, flew into, turned into, not a scrap of. At least 2 phrases if you copy, you can make sentences using those 2 phrases. So, phrases are groups of words with a special meaning. Now, let's look at crawl forward. Can you see this phrase here? Crawl forward.
Yes.
Let's look at crawl forward. What is the meaning of crawl forward? I told you before. To crawl forward means to move on your hands and knees with your body close to the ground. There's another expression which you can use to mean the same thing. To move on all fours. Moving on all fours. Again, to move on your hands and knees. Okay, that is called crawling forward. So how would you use this crawl forward in a sentence? Shall I give you a sentence? The little girl crawled forward to pick up her doll. Did you understand that now? The little girl crawled forward to pick up her doll. Okay, that is one way to use the phrase. Now next one, let's look at turned into. This is also another phrase here. I am going to show you the meaning of turned into and also how to use this phrase in a sentence. What's the meaning of turned into? To become something. Okay, so how is this going to be used in a sentence? Turned into. The frog turned into a handsome prince. You must have heard this story, no? Isn't it a famous story, Mahesh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, where the frog turns into a handsome prince. So the frog becomes a handsome prince. That's the meaning of turned into. Alright, so students, I have taught you the meaning for two phrases and I've also taught you how to use them in a sentence. Now you copy down two more. I'm sure you've copied at least two more by now. Okay, you must look up the meaning, find out what the meaning is and use them in sentences of your own. Alright, that will be your assignment. Shall we move on now? So now let's look at some more examples for phrases. What do you see here, Mahesha? Can you tell the students what we see here?
A cake, a table,
Okay.
a jar,
Yeah.
a chair.
Okay, that's the scene.
Okay.
You can see a table.
Yes, ma'am.
On the table there's a cake. Can you see some nuts on the cake?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can
There
see
are-
those nuts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then there are some apples and there's a jar. Now let's see what happens to this. Oh, what happened?
Cake fell down, ma'am.
The cake fell down, isn't it? The cake which was on the table fell down. Let's see how we describe that. The cake with nuts fell on the floor. Is that correct, students? Mahesha, what do you think?
Yes, ma'am. The
Yeah.
cake with nuts fell on
Fell
the floor.
on the floor. Now look here, students. Okay, let's go back. We'll just go back to the
Yes,
next
ma'am. Crawl
slide.
forward, waiting for.
Looking at, shout
Shout
for,
for,
blew through, flew into, turned into, not a scrap of. These are all
Phrases.
phrases. Phrases are groups of words
With
with a special meaning. Now here we saw this picture where the cake falls down. The cake with nuts fell on the floor. Now look at the sentence here. This phrase with nuts. Can you see the words with nuts? That has been highlighted. And on the floor, that is also highlighted. These are phrases. With nuts is a phrase which is describing the noun, which is the cake. You all know the noun, naming words. Cake is the noun here. Okay? So, with nuts is the phrase which is describing the noun, which is the cake. On the floor is the other phrase. What is that doing? That is a phrase which tells us where the cake fell. Is that clear, Mahesha? Are you understanding this?
Yes, ma'am.
So, on the floor is a phrase which is telling us where the cake fell. It is adding more meaning to the verb fell. Did you understand, students? Okay, let's move on. Now here, these two phrases, let's go on to the next phrase, children. What is this? It's a picture of
Gift boxes.
gift boxes. Can you see 3 gift boxes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Let's see what happens here. Look at this sentence. The gift inside the big box is mine. So here also you can see the phrase. Which is the phrase here?
Inside the big
Inside
box.
the big box. That's right. Inside the big box. It is a phrase which is describing the gift, which is the noun. It's the phrase describing the noun. Alright? So next, we have one more sentence here. What do you see here, students?
Ma'am, 3 cars.
3 cars. Can you see the 3 cars? What are the colors?
Silver, red, yellow.
Yellow. Alright, let's see what the sentence is. The car beside the red one is the one I want to buy. But now here, there are 2 cars on both sides of the red one. So let's extend the sentence just a little. The car beside the red one on its right. Which is the one on its right? This one, right? On the right side of the red car. So, The car beside the red one on its right is the one I want to buy. So what is the phrase here? Very good. Beside the red one. Beside the red one is a phrase which is describing the noun again. Which is the noun here, Maisha?
Car.
The car. Is that right, students?
Yes,
Are you
ma'am.
understanding this? Okay. Now look at this picture. What is the girl trying to do?
She's trying to jump across the stream.
Yeah, she's trying to jump across the stream. Let's see what the sentence says. She must have jumped across the stream. Now look at this sentence, students. Must have jumped is the phrase here. Now what is this phrase? Must have jumped. Must and have are auxiliary verbs. You've learnt about auxiliary verbs already. Auxiliary verbs are what verbs, children?
Helping verb. ma'am.
Helping verbs. Very good. Which is the main verb here?
Jumped.
Jumped is the main verb. Can you see the main verb? That is jumped. So must and have. These are the two auxiliary verbs or the helping verbs. So what do you understand from this sentence? A combination of helping verbs and main verbs can also make a phrase. Do you realize that? So this is a combination of helping verbs and the main verb. So must have jumped. These three together also can make a phrase. So let's go to the next sentence now. What do you see here?
A girl is singing.
A
ma'am.
girl is singing. Okay, we'll see how we can describe this. Sindhu, my sister with a sweet voice, sang a beautiful song. So here, with a sweet voice is the phrase. You can see it's highlighted. It's a group of words which has a special meaning. What is the special meaning here? With a sweet voice. That is the phrase which is telling you how sweet Sindhu's voice is. Yes or no?
Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
Maisha? Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
With a sweet voice is the phrase which is describing the sweetness of Sindhu's voice. Okay? So that is a phrase here. Let's go on to the next sentence now. Oh, what is this picture showing you?
A tiger.
It's a tiger. It's a tiger moving in the grass. Right? So let's see what the sentence is. The tiger crouched slowly over the grass. Is that correct, students?
Ma'am, I think it's the tiger crouched slowly on the grass.
Why on the grass? Why not over the grass, students? Do you know whenever we use the word over, we mean a little higher. Okay? So over is not exactly the correct word here. So let's say the tiger crouched slowly on the grass. So here your phrase is on the grass. Okay? The tiger crouched slowly on the grass. So on the grass here tells us where the tiger crouched. Right? So crouched is the verb here. Can you see? You can see the word crouched. Crouched is the verb. What is the meaning of crouched?
To bend over.
To bend over. You know when a tiger is hunting for its prey, isn't it? It bends and moves forward stealthily, slowly. So that is called crouching. So the sentence here is the tiger crouched slowly on the grass. Let's look at the next sentence. Okay, we have an activity now. Shall we do this exercise, students? You have to complete these sentences choosing the correct phrase from the given list. So I'll be giving you a list of phrases. You will have to select the correct phrase and then complete the sentences. Let's look at the list. Can you read the list, Maisha?
Yes, ma'am. After several attempts towards the finishing line, under the cart, under the moonlight, of the dragon, within the first few chapters.
Shall I repeat it for you, students? After several attempts towards the finishing line, under the cot, under the moonlight, of the dragon, within the first few chapters. So these are all phrases that are given to you in the list. Now let's look at the sentences. So I will show you all the sentences first, and then we'll see the phrase which goes into each sentence. Shall we start with the first one, Mahisha? Will you read it out?
Yes, ma'am. The extra blanket is in the box dash.
Dash.
The clues dash will tell us who the culprit is.
Is.
They walked on the tank bund
Dash.
Dash Vangia was able to defeat the old monster. Racing dash Satish realized he might win the race. Tell me the story dash.
Dash. So let's look at the first one. You have to remember, students, you have to fill in with the correct phrase. The extra blanket is in the box dash. What is the phrase that will be suitable there? Can you see? The extra blanket is in the box. Very good. Under the cot. Under the cot is the correct answer there. Okay? Let's look at the second one. The clues dash will tell us who the culprit is. The clues dash will tell us who the culprit is.
Ma'am, the right answer is
Yes.
within the first few chapters.
Within the first few chapters. That's right. What's the meaning of this? Within the first few chapters. Andre, in the first few chapters, before the first few chapters get over, we have some clues. The clues within the first few chapters will tell us who the culprit is. Culprit andre, a person who has committed some crime, who is responsible for a crime.
Ma'am, nothing but thief.
Yeah, it may be a thief or a robber. Okay?
Okay.
So this is about a story, in a story. The clues within the first few chapters will tell us who the culprit is. Shall we move on to the next sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
They walked on the tank bund dash. Which is the phrase which will be suitable there?
Ma'am, it's under the moon.
Under the moonlight, isn't it? It's always a nice thing to walk in the moonlight, right? So they walked on the tank bund under the moonlight. Okay, let's look at the next one. Dash Wangjia was able to defeat the old monster. Now this is easy, students. This is from your lesson. How did Wangjia defeat the old monster? Did he defeat the old monster at the first attempt?
No, ma'am.
No, he had to struggle hard, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the phrase that will be suitable there?
Ma'am, after several attempts.
After several attempts. That means after many attempts. After trying many times, Wangjia was able to defeat the old monster. So the correct answer is after several attempts, Wangjia was able to defeat the old monster. Next one is racing dash. Satish realized he might win the race. So Satish realized he might win the race. He has still not won the race. So he is racing where? Where do you think he is racing? Yes, Mahisha?
Towards the finishing line.
Towards the finishing line. Doesn't it make sense, students? Racing towards the finishing line, Satish realized he might win the race. Okay? The last sentence. Tell me the story dash
Of the dragon.
of the dragon. It's very simple now. There's only one phrase remaining. So tell me the story of the dragon. Did you understand this, students? Yeah? Did you understand how to use the phrases? Very good. Let's move on now. Now look at this picture, students. What do you see here?
Ma'am, a girl sitting beside the window.
Inside
It's
her
raining.
house, yes?
It's raining outside.
Okay. It's raining outside and the girl is sitting inside her house next to the window. Now look at the sentence. Can you see two sentences on the screen? Yeah, students, what are the sentences? It was raining. I stayed at home. So what is the meaning here? Here, this girl is saying, it was raining. I stayed at home. Now, it was raining is the reason for the second sentence. I stayed at home. Is it correct, Mahisha?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it was raining is the reason and this is the result. I stayed at home. Now these two sentences, they are okay, they make sense. But when they are joined together, it becomes more meaningful. Shall we try doing that? So now look at the sentences, how I've used the two sentences. It was raining, so I stayed at home. Do you understand this? I have just joined the two sentences using the word so. It was raining, so I stayed at home. This is the reason. and this is the result. I have linked these two sentences using the word so. So what is so called here, Mahesha? Can you tell?
Linking words, ma'am.
Yeah, so is the linking word here because it is used to link the two sentences or the two ideas. Are you understanding this, students? Let's move on. This same sentence can be told in this way also. It was raining, therefore I stayed at home. Isn't it? The meaning doesn't change. So see here, instead of so, I have used therefore. It was raining, therefore I stayed at home. It's doing the same job. It's not changing the meaning of the sentence. Right? Let's look at some more examples. As it was raining, I stayed at home. Now where is the linking word, Mahesha?
As.
As. It has come in the beginning of the sentence. As it was raining, I stayed at home. This is also perfectly okay, isn't it? Reason and result. And the connecting word is here in the beginning of the sentence.
Ma'am, can we say I stayed at home because it was raining?
Yeah, absolutely. I stayed at home because it was raining. That is also correct, isn't it, students? But what has happened there? I stayed at home because it was raining. Can you look at this sentence now? See? The connecting word or the linking word is because here. But what has happened to the sentence, Mahesha?
I stayed at home comes in
Has
the beginning.
come in the beginning. And it was raining has come in the end. Right? So what has happened here? The result has come in the beginning and the reason has come in the end. So that means the structure of the sentence has changed. But the meaning has not changed. Meaning is the same. Did you understand, students? I stayed at home because it was raining. So even though the structure changes, meaning alli change iralla. The meaning will stay the same. Did you understand? Let's look at one more example now, okay? So what is this man doing?
Walking in the
He's
rain.
walking in the rain. It's raining, you can see.
Yes, ma'am.
And this man is walking. Linkers. Let's see what linkers are first. You saw the linkers earlier, no? You saw so, therefore, because, as. Those were all called what? Linking words. I told you they were called linking words or linkers. So what are linkers, students? Linkers are words or phrases that we use to link or connect ideas. You saw how the word was used to connect the two ideas. Okay? Let's look at the next example now. It was raining. I went for a walk. Now these are also two sentences here, two different ideas. But what is the relationship between these two sentences? ಈಗ ಈ ಎರಡು ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ. It was raining. I went for a walk. Do you normally go for a walk when it is raining, Mahesha?
No, ma'am. Wet if I
Yeah.
walk in the rain.
When we walk in the rain, when we go out when it's raining, we get wet and we catch a cold.
Yes.
So these two sentences are contrasting sentences, opposite sentence. It was raining. I went for a walk. Now these two sentences also make sense, but when you use a linker, it becomes more meaningful. Shall we see how we use a linker here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It was raining, but I went for a walk. So that makes more sense.
Yes, ma'am.
It was raining,
but I went
for a walk. So even though I went for a walk, that is the meaning. It was raining, but I went for a walk. Look at another way of linking the two sentences, students. It was raining, however, I went for a walk. So it's doing the same job. It was raining, however, I went for a walk. So what is the linking word here?
However.
However. However is the linking word because it is linking the two sentences. Alright? This is one more way. Although it was raining, I went for a walk. Although it was raining, I went for a walk. Which is the linking word here?
Although.
Although. It has come in the beginning of the sentence. So, although it was raining, I went for a walk. Let's look at one more example now.
Ma'am, why do we need to use linkers?
Linkers are normally used, Mahesha, when we want to connect two ideas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, maybe the two ideas or the two sentences make sense by themselves, but when we use a linking word, it becomes more meaningful, and you can even make your sentences or your paragraphs more compact.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the use of linkers. Let's see this next example. What can you see here? You can see a boy, he is studying. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is Raju. Raju worked hard. Okay, let's see the next sentence here. He failed in his examination. Now, how is that possible, students? Normally, when you work hard, you do well in your examination, isn't it? But look at these two sentences. Raju worked hard. Raju failed in his examination. So, what do you think these two sentences are? Contrasting sentences, opposite sentences. You work hard, no? Don't you do well in your exams when you work hard? Work hard, you will do well. But here something else has happened. Raju worked hard. Raju failed in his examination. Because they are contrasting ideas. Can you tell, Mahisha, do you have an idea?
Yes, ma'am. Raju worked hard but failed in his examination.
Very good. Raju worked hard but failed in his examination. Doesn't that sound better? Raju worked hard but failed in his examination. Let's see other ways of linking these two sentences. Raju worked hard yet failed in his examination. Let's not use the comma here. Raju worked hard yet failed in his examination. There are different ways of linking the two sentences. See, now the linker has come in the beginning of the sentence. What's the linker here?
Although.
Although. Although Raju worked hard, he failed in his examination. So, although he worked hard, he failed in his examination. That is the meaning here. Let's look at the next. Though Raju worked hard, he failed in his examination. This though and although can be used alternatively. They can be used for the same purpose. Okay? Though Raju worked hard, he failed in his examination. Is that clear, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, students, are you understanding this? Despite working hard, Raju failed in his examination. Despite means in spite of. You have heard this word is familiar to you. So, despite working hard, Raju failed in his examination. Okay? Let's look at the next. So, in spite of working hard, Raju failed in his examination. Can you recall some of the linkers, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am. But, despite, in spite of, although, even though, so, therefore.
So, all these are called linkers. What are they called, students?
Linkers.
Linkers. They are also called connectors. They are also conjunctions. Right? You must have understood by now. What is this madam is saying linkers, linkers? Of course, they are all conjunctions. Because they link to sentences or to ideas, they are called linkers or connectors. Let's go on to the next one now. Now, this is a paragraph again from your textbook, from the lesson, The Bird of Happiness. I'll read out this paragraph for you. Mahesh will read it out for you. Let's see how it is.
In ancient days, there was a very poor area in Tibet. It had no rivers, no good land, no warmth, no fresh flowers, no trees, no green grass. The people who lived there suffered from hunger all year round. They suffered from cold all year round. They did not know what happiness was like. They still believed that happiness must exist somewhere in the world.
So, did you hear this, students? How did the paragraph sound? Mahisha, can you tell me what was the paragraph sounding like?
Ma'am, I couldn't find any linkers words in this
Yes,
paragraph.
there were no linker words. So, what is the problem if there is no linking word? Yes, there were a lot of repeating words, isn't it? Words are repeated and there is no proper relation between the words. Right? One after the other the sentences have come. But there is no proper relation between each sentence because of the absence of the linking words. So, now let's see with a few linking words whether it makes more sense. Shall we read this out now to you, students? In ancient days, there was a very poor area in Tibet. It had no rivers or good land, no warmth or fresh flowers, no trees or green grass. The people who lived there suffered from hunger and cold all year round. They did not know what happiness was like. Despite this, they still believed that happiness must exist somewhere in the world. Now, does this make more sense? What do you think, students? Absolutely, no? This paragraph with the use of linkers is making more sense. Can we pick out some linkers, Mahesha, from here?
Yes, ma'am. Or
Is a linker.
again,
So, or has been repeated here
again,
and here.
and
Can you see and here, students?
despite.
And despite. So these are all the linkers that we have used to make this paragraph more meaningful. It has become more compact and more clear. The ideas are clearer and the relationship between the sentences is also clear now. So this is the use of linkers. So although you may use sentences without linkers and those sentences may make sense, but when you use linkers, the sentences will be perfect. You will be able to communicate better with the use of linkers. Did you understand, students? Okay, let's move on now. Here we have a few sentences here. You have already learnt how to use but and because in today's class, isn't it? But and because were the two linkers you used. You learnt already. Let's look at the usage of and. Okay, here I will show you how and is used in some sentences. What is the sentence you can see on screen, the two sentences? Manisha, can you read them out?
The mountain that Wangjia saw was large. It was covered with snow.
Snow. The mountain that Wang Jia saw was large. It was covered with snow. So is there any way to combine and join these two sentences?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
How can you do that?
Ma'am, the mountain that Wangjia saw was large and it was covered with snow.
Isn't it? Isn't that the correct answer, students? The mountain that Wang Jia saw was large and it was covered with snow. Now this sounds much better. It makes more sense. Isn't it? So can you see the usage of and here? See, and is the connector here. So it has made the two sentences much more meaningful. Right? So this is how and is to be used. Let's look at the next sentence. What do you see here? Wang Jia lay on the ground. He began to crawl forward. So how will you use and here, Mahesha?
Ma'am, Wangjia lay on the ground and he began to crawl forward.
Is that right, students? Wang Jia lay on the ground and he began to crawl forward. That makes more sense, isn't it? Now here you can see Wang Jia. His knees were bruised. Where are the knees bruised, students? Yeah, we'll bruise the knees a little. Alright. His knees were bruised. He walked slowly. How would you combine these two sentences?
Ma'am, his
Yes.
knees were bruised and he walked slowly.
Isn't it? When your knees are bruised, you can't walk very fast, right? So, these two sentences are combined like this. His knees were bruised and he walked slowly. So, here, Mahisha, can you think of some other linkers that we can use?
Ma'am, he walked slowly because his knees were bruised.
Very good. That's perfect, isn't it? What has happened here? What has Mahisha done? Mahisha said he walked slowly because his knees were bruised. You see, again, the result has come first and the reason has come in the end. Because he used the word because, the linking word because. Okay, children? Alright. In the same way, you can use therefore or so also. You know the usage of both those linkers. Using so, can you join the two sentences, Mahesh?
Ma'am, his knees were bruised, therefore he walked slowly.
Very good. His knees were bruised, so he walked slowly. Using so and therefore also, the same thing can be done, joining the two sentences. So now, there's an activity for you students. You have learned the usage of because, isn't it, as a linking word. We spoke to you about how because can be used. Now, I'll give you a list of sentences. You have to complete the sentences using because or because of. Okay? Because and because of are used in different situations. We'll read the sentences first, and then you can tell me where you're going to use because and where you're going to use because of. Okay, shall we read the sentences?
Yes, ma'am.
Let all the sentences come and then we'll read out the sentences to you children. Okay, come on. Can you read, Maisha?
Yes, ma'am. We had to hurry indoors, dash, it was raining.
We had to hurry indoors, dash, it was raining.
They moved to Mumbai, dash, her job.
They moved to Mumbai, dash, her job.
She found the exam easy, dash, she had worked hard during the course.
She found the exam easy, dash, she had worked hard during the course.
He crashed his car, dash, he was driving too fast.
He crashed his car, dash, he was driving too fast.
He found working in Japan very difficult, dash, the language problem.
He found working in Japan very difficult, dash, the language problem.
We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock, dash, the traffic was terrible.
We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock, dash, the traffic was terrible.
I am late, dash, heavy traffic.
I am late, dash, heavy traffic.
I can't drive, dash, his illness.
He can't drive, dash, his illness. Now these are all the sentences. Here you might have understood by now. In some blanks you have to use because, in some blanks you have to use because of. Shall we see where because is used and where because of can be used?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's look at the first sentence. We had to hurry indoors, dash, it was raining. What do you think is the correct answer here? Because it was raining or because of it was raining?
Ma'am, it's because it was raining.
Yes, it is because it was raining. See, we did the second one also for you.
Yes, ma'am.
They moved to Mumbai because of her job. Okay, so these two answers we have given you. The rest of the sentences, students, you have to answer. Shall we do the third one now?
Yes, ma'am.
She found the exam easy, dash, she had worked hard during the course. What do you think is the answer here?
Ma'am, it's because.
Because. Is it right? Is he right, students? Is because the correct answer here? She found the exam easy because she had worked hard during the course. That's correct. Now let's look at the next sentence. He crashed his car, dash, he was driving too fast. Because of he was driving too fast?
No, ma'am.
No, it is
Because.
because. He crashed his car because he was driving too fast. Next sentence. He found working in Japan very difficult, dash, the language problem. Where what will you put here? Because or because of?
He found working in the Japan very
difficult.
Because of the language problem.
Because of the language problem. Isn't it? That sounds better. Because the language problem. He found working in Japan very difficult because of the language problem. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Next sentence. We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock, dash, the traffic was terrible. Because the traffic was terrible or because of the traffic was terrible?
No, it is we didn't arrive until 7 o'clock because the traffic was terrible.
Very good. We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock because the traffic was terrible. The next one. I am late, dash, heavy traffic. What would you use here?
I am late because of heavy traffic.
Because of heavy traffic, isn't it? I am late because of heavy traffic. Let's do the last one, students. He can't drive, dash, his illness. What will you put here? He can't drive, dash, his illness.
He can't drive because of his illness.
Because of his illness. Is that correct? Isn't it, students? He can't drive because of his illness. Now, if this last, let's look at this last sentence. Okay? He can't drive because of his illness. Now, suppose that sentence was, he can't drive, dash, he is ill. Then what would we have used? Suppose the sentence was, he can't drive, dash, he is ill. Then would you use because of?
No, ma'am.
No, you would use because. He can't drive because he is ill. Now what is the difference? Look at all these sentences where we have used because of. Okay, can you see the sentences where we have used because of? This sentence, second sentence, seventh sentence and eighth sentence. Here in all these sentences we have used because of. So everywhere we have used because of, there is a phrase that follows it. Are you understanding, students? Yeah? They moved to Mumbai because of her job. That's a phrase. Alright. Then, he found working in Japan very difficult because of the language problem. That is also a phrase. What's the seventh one? I am late because of heavy traffic. That is also a phrase. And the last one, he can't drive because of his illness. So that is also a phrase. So, because of connects a clause with a phrase. Are you understanding that? Yeah, is that clear, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am.
They moved to Mumbai is the clause here. Her job is the phrase. So, because of is connecting the clause to the phrase. So, when you have to connect a clause to a phrase, you use because of. When you have to connect two clauses, then we use because. Look here, students. This is a clause. We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock is a clause. The traffic was terrible. That is also a clause. So what is the word we are using to connect the two clauses?
Because, ma'am.
Because. Are you understanding, students? When you have to connect two clauses, you use because. When you have to connect a clause with a phrase, then you use because of. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we read this once again for them, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am.
Come on.
We had to hurry indoors because it was raining.
We had to hurry indoors because it was raining.
They moved to Mumbai because of her job.
They moved to Mumbai because of her job.
She found the exam easy because she had worked hard during the course.
She found the exam easy because she had worked hard during the course.
He crashed his car because he was driving too fast.
He crashed his car because he was driving too fast. See, students, in the fourth sentence also, the linking word is because. He crashed his car is a clause. He was driving too fast is also a clause. So to connect or to link these two clauses, we have used because. You cannot use because of here. Is that clear? Okay, next one, Mahesha, fifth one.
He found working in Japan very difficult because of the language problem.
He found working in Japan very difficult because of the language problem. Okay. Next one.
We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock because the traffic was terrible.
We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock because the traffic was terrible. Again here you can see we didn't arrive until 7 o'clock is a clause. The traffic was terrible, that is also a clause. So connecting these two clauses is the word because. We didn't arrive until 7 o'clock because the traffic was terrible. Next one.
I am late because of heavy traffic.
I am late because of heavy traffic. Here you can see, students, I am late is the clause. Heavy traffic is a phrase. Is that clear, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you have to connect a clause with a phrase, you have to use because of. When you have to connect two clauses, you use the word because. Okay. Last sentence.
He can't drive because of his illness.
He can't drive because of his illness. Again here you can see he can't drive is the clause, his illness is the phrase. So you're connecting a clause with a phrase using because of. Did you understand this, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall we move on? Now, this is one last exercise for you. Let's complete these sentences with suitable linkers. Okay, we are choosing linkers from the brackets. The linkers will be given to you, students. You have to select the correct one. Shall we do it now?
Yes,
okay, let's see what the list of linkers are. Can we read the list once, Mahesha?
Yes, ma'am. however, so that, although, so, despite, since.
Okay. Now I'll read the list once again to you students. However, so that, although, so, despite and since. These are the linkers that we have given you in this list. Now some linkers you have already seen how they are used. However, you know how to use. Although, you know how to use. So, you have learned how to use. Despite, you have learned how to use. How do you use so that and since? These are two new linkers. But these are words you have learned already in your class, in your school, isn't it? So that. It was so cold that I had to wear a sweater. Have you heard that? Yeah? It was so cold that I had to wear a sweater. Mahisha, did you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? That is how you use so that. Can you see this, students? It was so cold that I had to wear a sweater. And what about since? What is the meaning of since, students? Since is another way of saying because. Okay? Normally we don't start a sentence with because. So then we use the word since. Okay? Shall we see the sentences now?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's look at all the sentences. Read it out, Mahisha, please.
It was late, dash, I decided to take a taxi.
Let's look at the next sentence.
The storm was, dash, terrible, dash, the roofs were ripped off.
Okay? Third sentence.
Dash, we arrived late, all the best seats had been taken.
Okay?
Dash, the car is old, it is still reliable.
Alright.
Dash, her weakness, she continued to work.
Okay?
Buying a house is expensive, dash, it is a good investment.
Okay, let's look at these sentences. It was late, dash, I decided to take a taxi. What would you put here?
Ma'am, it was late, so I decided to take a taxi.
Very good. So I decided to take a taxi. Next one. The storm was
so terrible
so terrible
that the roofs were ripped off.
Very good. The storm was so terrible that the roofs were ripped off. Now, next one. Dash, we arrived late. All the best seats had been taken. What is the word here?
Ma'am, since we arrived late.
Very good. Since. I told you can't use because in the beginning of the sentence, right? So we use since. Now next one. Dash, the car is old. It is still reliable.
Although car is old.
Yes. The car is old, but it is still reliable. It is still working in good condition. So, although is the linker. Next sentence. Dash, her weakness, she continued to work.
Despite her weakness, she continued to work.
She was weak, but she didn't stop working. So, despite her weakness, she continued to work. Last sentence. Buying a house is expensive. Dash.
However, it is a good investment.
However, it is a good investment. Buying a house is expensive. However, it is a good investment. Did you understand, students? Okay. Shall we read these sentences now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It was late, so I decided to take a taxi. The storm was so terrible that the roofs were ripped off. Since we arrived late, all the best seats had been taken. Although the car is old, it is still reliable. Despite her weakness, she continued to work. Buying a house is expensive, however, it is a good investment. Did you understand, students? Well done. So in today's class, you have learned how to use phrases and linkers. If there is any doubt about today's class, students, please call the number that is displayed on your screen. Thank you. Have a good day.